Starlight Plaza shone like a jewel in the heart of Irvine, California. Its massive glass walls caught the golden sunlight, reflecting a dazzling glow that made the mall feel like the epicenter of modern life. By day, pop music blasted from ceiling speakers, blending with the chatter of shoppers, families hauling bags, teens snapping selfies, and office workers grabbing lunch at the food court. But when the sun dipped below the horizon, the mall transformed. The long hallways, dim lights, and eerie silence gave it a vibe that could unsettle even the toughest cynic. Sophie Tran, 25, stood behind the cash register at Forever 21, her brown eyes scanning the neatly arranged racks of clothes. She wore a light gray sweater and jeans, her dark hair tied up in a high ponytail for work. Her evening shift ran from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., when the mall officially closed. Today, Friday, October 17, 2025, the place buzzed more than usual, with people gearing up for Halloween shopping. "Yo, Sophie, you done with that new shipment yet?" Mia, her co-worker, called from the jacket section. Mia, a blonde with boundless energy, could charm any customer into buying an extra pair of earrings they didn't need. "Yeah, just wrapped it up," Sophie replied, her voice tinged with exhaustion. She'd spent the last hour sorting through a delivery of sweaters and dresses, a tedious but necessary task. "God, I need coffee." Mia laughed. "Same, girl. You coming to my Halloween party next week? It's gonna be lit." Sophie gave a half a smile, not fully committed. She liked Mia, but crowded parties weren't her thing. Growing up in Irvine in a Vietnamese-American family, Sophie was raised with values like hard work and cultural pride. Her mom, Mai, always told her to keep your head clear and avoid distractions. Still, Sophie was a modern California girl. She jammed to Taylor Swift, scrolled X daily, and dreamed of breaking into the fashion industry instead of ringing up sales at a mall. "Mia, you see that?" Sophie asked, pointing at the ceiling. Mia paused mid-fold, frowning. "What? The lights? They're fine, Soph." Sophie shook her head, telling herself she was imagining things. But she couldn't shake the unease that had been creeping up on her all week. It started Monday, when she stayed late to clean up. She'd heard a faint whisper, like wind rustling leaves, coming from the fitting rooms. She checked, but no one was there. Then Wednesday, a mirror in one of the stalls reflected something fleeting, even though she was alone. She tried to chalk it up to bad lighting, but her gut screamed otherwise. "Toi kai met toi," Sophie muttered to herself in Vietnamese. "Chill, Sophie." But the words didn't help. "I'm gonna check the fitting rooms," she told Mia, stepping away from the counter. She wove through racks of clothes, passing customers trying on jackets or snapping mirror selfies. Forever 21 was one of the busiest stores in Starlight Plaza, but today, Sophie felt detached, like she was in a different world from everyone else. The hallway to the fitting rooms was narrow and lit by cold white bulbs. Sophie paused at the large mirror at the end, checking for smudges. But as her eyes met the glass, her heart skipped. For a split second, she swore she saw a figure, shapeless, just a gray blur, standing behind her. She spun around, but the hallway was empty. "What the hell was that?" she whispered, her voice shaky. She stared back at the mirror, seeing only her pale face and wide eyes. Swallowing hard, she tried to stay calm. "Mais met que rewa, Sophie," she told herself again. "Sleep it off." But as she turned away, a soft sound echoed, like fingernails scraping glass. Sophie froze, glancing back at the mirror. Nothing. Yet the feeling of being watched clung to her, like an invisible hand gripping her throat. Downstairs, Jake Morales paced the polished tile floor of the food court. His watch read 8:45 p.m., 15 minutes until Starlight Plaza locked its doors. Jake, 30, wore a Navy security uniform, with a flashlight and radio clipped to his belt. Tall and broad-shouldered, he had short black hair and a small scar on his eyebrow from a high school fight. Raised in nearby Santa Ana in a Mexican-American family, Jake prided himself on being practical. No ghosts, no fate, just facts. But Starlight Plaza at night? It gave him the creeps. Jake popped in his earbuds, tuning into his favorite podcast, Mysteries Uncovered. The host's deep voice spun a tale about a haunted house in Ohio where residents heard kids laughing in the basement. Jake snorted. "Yeah, sure. Probably just pipes," he mumbled. But his smirk faded as he stepped into the security control room, a cramped space packed with monitors and consoles. He plopped into a chair, scanning the camera feeds. Starlight Plaza had over 100 cameras, covering everything from the main entrance to the narrowest hallways. Most screens showed the usual: shoppers trickling out, employees closing up, lights dimming in some areas. But one monitor, camera 42, near Forever 21 on the second floor, was glitching. The image flickered, blurring then sharpening, like someone was messing with the signal. "Come on, don't do this," Jake muttered, tapping the screen. He zoomed in, and his stomach dropped. In the corner of the frame, a figure stood motionless. It wasn't clear, just a faint, smoky shape, but definitely not a customer or employee. Jake frowned, checking the system. No alarms, no errors. He switched to another nearby camera, but the figure was gone. "What the hell?" he said under his breath, standing up. He grabbed his flashlight and radio, deciding to check it out in person. As he left the control room, the food court's lights flickered in unison, like the whole electrical system was hiccuping. Jake froze, looking up. "Okay, that's not cool," he said, his voice tight. He clicked his radio, calling his coworker at the main gate. "Yo, Carlos, you got any power issues down there?" Static crackled before Carlos answered. "Nah, all good here. What's up?" Jake hesitated. He didn't want to mention the figure on the camera, not because he was scared, but because he didn't want to sound crazy. Just, "Light's acting weird. I'm checking it." He climbed the now still escalator to the second floor, the air colder than it should be. His footsteps echoed in the quiet mall. As he neared Forever 21, he caught a sound, not a whisper, but a low hiss, like static from a bad radio. He aimed his flashlight at the store's glass doors, seeing only lifeless mannequins. Jake shook his head, blaming the podcast for making him jumpy. But then his flashlight flickered and died. He smacked it, but it stayed dark. "Great. Just great," he grumbled. Right then, a shadow darted across his peripheral vision, so fast he wasn't sure it was real. Across the mall, Maya Chan wiped down the counter at Starlight Brew, a cozy coffee shop tucked in the food court. Maya, 22, was a junior at UC Irvine, majoring in communications. With short hair streaked with green highlights and a tiny nose ring, she was always glued to her phone, scrolling X or filming content. Working part-time at the coffee shop wasn't her dream, but it paid for rent and camera gear. "Ugh, why is it so dead tonight?" Maya groaned, eyeing the nearly empty food court. Only a few stragglers sat at tables, and most other stalls were closing up. She pulled out her phone, opened X, and started recording a video. "What's good, X fam? It's Maya, live from the most boring shift ever at Starlight Plaza. Anyone else think this place is low-key haunted?" She grinned, but her smile vanished when a coffee cup on the counter, a latte no one had touched, slid an inch to the right, like someone nudged it. Maya froze, her phone still recording. "Wait, what the, did y'all see that?" she said, her voice spiking. She swung the phone around, zooming in on the cup. It sat still, like it hadn't moved at all. "Okay, that was weird," Maya muttered. She stopped recording and replayed the clip. Sure enough, the cup had shifted, with no breeze or vibration to explain it. Her heart raced, but instead of panic, she felt a thrill. This could blow up on X. She edited the video, slapping on a caption, "Haunted Mall Vibes," and posted it to her account, @Maya, the Vibe. Within minutes, the clip racked up dozens of likes and comments. One read, "Girl, that's creepy AF. You sure it's not a prank?" Another, "Starlight Plaza's always been weird. My friend heard voices in the bathroom." Maya scrolled through, her curiosity spiking. She'd heard rumors about the mall, every shopping center had its ghost stories, but she'd never bought into them. Until now. Maya decided to dig deeper. She grabbed another cup, set it in the same spot, and started a new video. "Alright, let's see if this moves again," she said, half joking. But as she filmed, The counter's lights flickered, and a cold draft swept through, making her shiver. Her phone buzzed with an X notification, but when she tapped it, the screen went black, despite a full battery. "Nope, I'm done," Maya said, pocketing her phone. She glanced around, feeling like someone was standing right behind her. But when she turned, there was nothing but empty tables and the food court's dim glow. Sophie stood in the dark hallway of Forever 21, clutching the store keys. She just finished locking up, and Mia had left with the other employees. Now, it was just her in the mall's oppressive silence. She double-checked the glass doors, making sure everything was secure, but the sense of being watched wouldn't quit. She stepped into the main hallway, where the lights had been dimmed to save power. The stores on either side, Sephora, Apple Store, H&M, were pitch black, with only faint glows from neon signs. Sophie hugged her bag, hurrying toward the escalator. But as she passed a jewelry store, a sound stopped her, not the whisper from before, but a voice, clear and icy. "Sophie." Her heart pounded. The voice didn't come from any direction, it was like it echoed in her head. She turned, peering into the jewelry store. A necklace on a mannequin seemed to glint brighter than it should, drawing in the surrounding light. Sophie backed away, her breath shallow. "Who's there?" she called, her voice trembling. No answer, just the hum of the AC. She turned to go, nearly sprinting. But as she reached the escalator, the overhead lights snapped off, plunging her into darkness. Sophie fumbled for her phone's flashlight, its weak beam cutting through the black. She heard footsteps, not hers, echoing behind her. She spun around, seeing nothing. "This isn't funny," she shouted, her voice cracking. Then the lights flared back on, and she was alone in the hallway. But at the far end, near Forever 21, a faint figure appeared for a split second before vanishing. Sophie didn't wait. She bolted down the escalator, her pulse hammering. At the main entrance, she spotted Jake Morales checking the doors. He looked up, frowning. "Hey, you good? You look like you saw a ghost," Jake said. Sophie panted, unsure how to answer. I don't know. Something's wrong with this place." Jake nodded, his expression grim. "Yeah. You're not the only one thinking that. Starlight Plaza at night is a paradisiac of darkness and dim light. The glass panels, which reflect bright sunlight during the day, now reflect only weak beams of LED light." Sophie Tran, 25, walks down the second-floor hallway, her breath coming in short gasps. Last night, she ran out of the mall after hearing a voice whisper her name, but today, she can't leave. Her Saturday night shift should have ended at 9 p.m. But it's almost midnight, and she's still stuck inside Forever 21. "This is messed up," Sophie muttered, her voice trembling as she locked the store's glass doors. She'd sent Mia home early, volunteering to close up alone, hoping to prove to herself that last night was just her imagination. But the air in the store felt wrong, thick, like it was pressing against her skin. The overhead lights flickered, not subtly like before, but in sharp, erratic bursts, like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Sophie clutched her phone, its flashlight beam cutting through the dimness. She'd tried calling her mom, her friends, even 911, but the signal was dead. Not just weak, completely gone, like the mall was cut off from the world. "Okay, Sophie, calm down," she whispered to herself in Vietnamese. "Mais lam duoc ma. Just get to the exit." She stepped into the main hallway, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. The stores on either side were dark, their mannequins staring out like silent sentinels. Sophie's eyes darted to a jewelry store across the hall, where a necklace had glinted unnaturally last night. Tonight, it was worse. The entire display case seemed to glow, not with reflected light, but with an inner pulse, like something alive. She froze, her heart pounding. "No way. I'm not doing this," she said, turning to hurry toward the escalator. But as she passed a full-length mirror outside Sephora, she stopped dead. Her reflection wasn't right. The Sophie in the mirror had her face, but her eyes were wrong, too large, too dark, like pools of ink. Her mouth moved, but Sophie wasn't speaking. A voice, low and guttural, spilled from the reflection, in language she didn't understand, yet it felt ancient, heavy with sorrow. "Help. Us. Sophie stumbled back, her phone slipping from her hand. The flashlight beam spun wildly, casting shadows that seemed to writhe on the walls. "What the hell are you?" she shouted, her voice echo. The mirror. Sophie raised a hand, its fingers elongated and twisted, reaching through the glass. Sophie screamed, bolting down the hallway, not daring to look back. She reached the escalator, but it wasn't still like it should be. The steps moved upward, against her descent, forcing her to run faster. The air grew colder, her breath visible in faint clouds. At the bottom, she tripped, sprawling onto the food court floor. The lights above flickered violently, and a low hum filled the air, like a chorus of whispers. Sophie scrambled to her feet, her phone lost somewhere behind her. She ran toward the main entrance, but the glass doors wouldn't budge. She pounded on them, screaming, "Let me out!" But beyond the glass, the parking lot was wrong. It wasn't the familiar sprawl of cars and streetlights, it was a void, a swirling black fog that seemed to pulse with intent. "Where am I, Sophie?" she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. She backed away from the doors, her mind racing. This wasn't just a malfunctioning mall. Something was trapping her here, something that knew her name. Jake Morales gripped his flashlight, its beam shaky as he navigated the second-floor hallway. His night shift had started normally, checked the cameras, patrolled the floors, locked the exits. But tonight, Starlight Plaza felt alive in the worst way. The lights flickered constantly, the air was freezing, and his radio spat nothing but static. He'd seen that shadowy figure on the cameras again, this time in multiple feeds, always just out of reach. "Man, this place is cursed," Jake muttered, his breath fogging in the cold. He wasn't a believer in ghosts. Growing up in Santa Ana, he'd laughed off his grandma's stories about spirits, but after last night's weirdness, he was on edge. He'd planned to check the hallway near Forever 21, where the cameras kept glitching, but now he wasn't so sure. He turned a corner, expecting the usual stretch of stores, but the hallway didn't end. It stretched on, impossibly long, lined with the same stores repeating, Forever 21, Sephora, H&M, over and over. Jake stopped, his stomach twisting. What the? He turned back, but the way he'd come was gone, replaced by more hallway. "Okay, this is not happening," he said, his voice tight. He started walking, faster now, but the hallway looped, bringing him back to the same spot. The signs above the stores flickered, their letters distorting into unreadable symbols. One digital billboard, usually advertising sales, now showed a grainy image of Jake, younger, maybe 16, standing in a park he hadn't visited in years. His teenage self stared out, eyes hollow. "Stop it!" Jake shouted, swinging his flashlight like a weapon. The beam caught a flicker of movement, a small figure at the end of the hall, no taller than a child. It stood motionless, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Jake's mouth went dry. "Hey, kid, you shouldn't be here," he called, but his voice cracked. The figure didn't move, but a giggle echoed, high and chilling, like it came from all directions. Jake took a step back, and a cold hand brushed his shoulder. He spun around, flashlight raised, but no one was there. The giggle grew louder, joined by whispers in a language he didn't know. The lights above surged, then went out, plunging him into darkness. Jake fumbled with his flashlight, but it wouldn't turn on. Come on," he hissed, smacking it. A faint glow appeared at the end of the hall, not from the lights, but from the child figure, now closer, its eyes glowing like twin moons. Jake's legs felt like lead, but he forced himself to run, the whispers chasing him, growing into a deafening roar. He burst into the food court, nearly colliding with a table. The lights here were on, but dim, casting long shadows. Jake leaned against a wall, panting, his heart hammering. "I'm losing it," he muttered, "this ain't real." But the cold handprint on his shoulder burned, and he knew he couldn't deny it anymore. Maya Chen sat behind the counter at Starlight Brew, her phone trembling in her hands. The food court was empty, the other stalls long closed, but she couldn't leave. Her shift had ended hours ago, but every time she tried the exits, they were locked, or the parking lot outside looked wrong, like a black void swallowing the world. Her video from last night, the one with the sliding coffee cup, had blown up on X, with thousands of views and comments. But now, she wished she'd never posted it. "I'm freaking out," Maya whispered, scrolling through her X feed. The comments were a mix of excitement and skepticism. "That's so creepy. Fake AF, nice editing." But one comment chilled her. "Check the background at 003. There's a kid behind you." Maya replayed the video, her pulse racing. At the 3-second mark, a small figure stood in the corner of the frame, a child with pale skin and dark eyes, staring directly at the camera. Maya dropped her phone, her breath hitching. No, that wasn't there," she said, backing away from the counter. She hadn't seen anyone when she filmed. She grabbed her phone, hands shaking, and opened the camera app to record again. "All right, X-Fam, something's seriously wrong here," she said, her voice unsteady. "I'm stuck in this mall, and I swear I'm not alone." As she panned the camera, the screen glitched, showing the food court, but not as it was. The tables were overturned, the walls cracked, and shadowy figures moved in the background, their forms flickering like bad TV static. Maya yelped, dropping the phone. It landed face up, still recording, and the screen now showed her standing in the food court, but with the child from the video standing behind her, its head tilted, a faint smile on its face. Maya screamed, kicking the phone away. The lights in the food court dimmed, and a low hum filled the air, like a distant chant. Her phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a new video playing, one she hadn't recorded. It showed Starlight Plaza, but the hallways twisted like a labyrinth, and the child walked toward the camera, its mouth moving in silent words. I'm done," Maya cried, grabbing her bag and running. She didn't care where, she just needed to get away. But as she reached the edge of the food court, the lights went out, and a cold hand grabbed her wrist. She screamed again, yanking free, and stumbled into someone. "Whoa, hey, it's okay," a voice said. Maya blinked, the lights flickering back on. Jake Morales stood in front of her, his flashlight raised, his face pale. "You alright?" "No, I'm not alright," Maya snapped, her voice hysterical. "There's something in here, man. My phone, it's showing things that aren't real." Jake frowned, glancing at her phone on the floor. "Yeah, I'm seeing things too. This place is messed up." Before Maya could respond, another scream echoed from the escalator. They turned, seeing Sophie Tran stumbling into the food court, her face white with terror. Sophie collapsed onto a food court chair, her hands shaking. "I saw something in the mirror," she gasped, switching between English and Vietnamese in her panic. "No Kung Fai toy. It wasn't me." Jake and Maya exchanged looks, their own fear mirrored in each other's eyes. "All right, slow down," Jake said, trying to sound calm. "What happened?" Sophie recounted the mirror, the distorted reflection, the voice. Jake shared his endless hallway and the child figure. Maya, still clutching her bag, showed them her phone, the video now frozen on the child's eerie smile. "This kid wasn't there when I filmed," she said, her voice breaking. "And the exits, they're not working. We're trapped." "This is some horror movie shit," Jake muttered, running a hand through his "Hi, I don't know what's going on, but we need to stick together." Sophie nodded, though her stomach churned. "Kothugido Ode," she whispered to herself. "Something that knows us." Maya, despite her fear, pulled herself together. "Okay, if we're stuck, we need answers. I've heard rumors about this place, people saying it's haunted. Maybe there's something in the management office. Records, files, anything." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You want to play detective now? You got a better idea?" Maya shot back. "I'm not sitting here waiting for that kid to show up again." Sophie took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. "She's right. We need to know what we're dealing with. Let's go." They headed to the management office, a small room tucked behind the food court. The door was unlocked, which felt wrong, but they didn't question it. Inside, the room was cluttered with files, computers, and a faint smell of mildew. Jake rifled through a drawer, pulling out a yellow document dated 1995, before the mall was built. "Check this out," he said, spreading it on the desk. It was a land survey, mentioning a historical site on the property, a small Chumash burial ground, relocated during construction. A handwritten note in the margin read, "Artifacts found. Disposed of per developer's orders." "Artifacts?" Maya said, her eyes wide. "Like, sacred stuff? No wonder this place is pissed off." Sophie's heart sank. "Noihozak fam noinai." She trailed off, her mind racing. The voices, the figures, the distortions, they weren't random. Something was trying to reach them, maybe to warn them, maybe to punish them. Before they could dig deeper, the lights in the office went out. A low chant filled the air, not from any speaker, but from the walls themselves. It was a language none of them knew, yet it carried a weight of grief and anger. The temperature plummeted, and the document on the desk began to tremble, its pages flipping on their own. "Get out!" Jake shouted, grabbing Sophie and Maya. They stumbled into the hallway, the chant growing louder, echoing through the mall. In the distance, a figure appeared, not the child, but a taller shape, its outline flickering like a dying flame. It didn't move, but its presence filled the air with dread. Sophie's knees buckled, but she forced herself to stand. "Chung ta file am Guido," she said, her voice barely audible. "We can't just run." Jake clenched his fists, his fear turning to defiance. "Then we figure out what they want. But I'm not letting this place win." Maya nodded, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "I'm in. But if we die, I'm haunting this mall right back." The chant stopped abruptly, replaced by a single word, spoken in unison by a dozen unseen voices, "Listen." The group froze, their breaths visible in the icy air. Whatever was in Starlight Plaza wasn't done with them yet. Starlight Plaza was no longer a mall. It lived, breathed, and breathed like a commercial organism. The glass walls, once reflecting the bright sunlight, were now blurred by an invisible mist, as if trapped in another dimension. The second-floor hallway where Sophie Tran, Jake Morales, and Maya Chen stood shook slightly, the tiled floor making a frame-like ringing sound. The LED lights flickered irregularly, casting long, restrained shadows, as if they had a mind of their own. Sophie hugged her arms, her breath forming white clouds in the cold air. The last voice from the previous chapter, "Listen," still echoed in her head, not in her ears, but deep in her mind. "This is crazy," she whispered in English, her eyes darting across the hallway. The stores, Forever 21, Sephora, H&M, were not fixed. We shifted, appearing and disappearing, like a painting redrawn by a mad artist. Jake, beside her, clutched the flashlight even though it was long dead. "I'm lost," he said, groaning. Sweat beaded on his face, though the mall was only a few degrees cooler. That hallway. It just kept going. And that kid. He paused, not wanting to remember the image of the kid with the moonlit eyes. Maya, crouched on the floor, held her phone like a charm. The screen flickered, showing the video from last night, the kid behind her, even though there was no one there. "My phone's been taken over," she said, half joking. "It's showing things I didn't record. And the exits, they're gone, guys. We're trapped." Sophie gasped, trying to keep her composure. "We have to do something," she said, switching to Vietnamese to reassure herself. "You can't be afraid, Sophie. I told you you're stronger than that." But her mother's words, though warm, did nothing to dispel the suffocating feeling. The air in the mall was heavy as water, every breath difficult. Suddenly, a screech sounded, not from the speakers, but from the walls themselves. It started as a whisper, then grew into a song, a sad melody, laced with crying and pleading. The lyrics weren't in English, or Spanish, or any language they knew. It was old, heartbreaking, like a lullaby from centuries ago. Sophie froze, her heart pounding. "That's Chumash," she whispered, though she didn't know why. The song seeped into her mind, bringing with it a flash of images, women in hand-woven garments, children playing by the stream, then blood, smoke, and screams. She stepped back, into Jake. "Are you okay?" Jake asked, putting a hand on her shoulder. But he ran too, eyes glued to the end of the hallway. Someone appeared, not a child this time, but a woman, tall and graceful, her hair flowing like water. Her face was hidden, but her presence radiated grief. She didn't move, but the air around her shimmered, distorting the hallway like heat waves. Maya scrambled to her feet, aiming at her phone. "I'm recording this," she said, her voice shaking. But the screen glitched, showing not the woman but a burning village, people running, and a broken stone circle. "What the hell is this?" Maya cried, dropping the phone. It hit the floor but didn't stop. The video kept playing, the screaming growing louder. "We need to move," Jake said, pulling Sophie and Maya back. "This place is trying to tell us something, and I don't want to stay to find out what it is." But when they turned back, the hallway had shifted. The escalator leading to the food court was gone, replaced by a glass wall. Sophie pounded on it, her fists leaving no trace. "No, no, no!" she screamed. "Let us go." The chanting grew louder, with separate voices now, each calling out their names. Sophie. Jake. Maya. The voices were soft, pleading, but their weight was crushing, like a hand squeezing their lungs. Sophie slid to the floor, tears streaming down her face. "I can't take it anymore," she sobbed. "What do they want from us?" Jake knelt beside her, his own fear barely contained. "They said, listen, right? Maybe we're not supposed to run. Maybe we need to listen to them." Maya, still staring at the phone, nodded slowly. "Yeah. The file we found, it mentioned a cemetery. What if it's about them? The Chumash?" Sophie wiped her eyes, forcing herself to breathe. Jake was right. Running wouldn't work. The mall, or whatever controlled it, wanted something. And they had to find something, or they'd never leave. The group returned to the management office, the only place that didn't move. The hallways resisted them every step of the way, tilted floors, flickering lights, and whispers following like ghosts. At one point, a rack of clothes from Forever 21 floated by. Hangers kicked open the office door. The room was unchanged, cluttered with files, a dusty computer, and a faint mildew smell. But now, the air hummed with energy, like a storm was brewing inside. Maya went straight for the desk, flipping through papers. "There's gotta be more here," she said. "Something about that burial ground." Her hands shook, but her focus was razor sharp, fueled by fear and adrenaline. Sophie searched the filing cabinet, her fingers brushing something cold, a small leather pouch hidden behind a stack of invoices. She opened it, revealing a necklace of white shells, intricately woven with beads. "It feels heavy, not with weight, but with meaning. Guys, look at this," she said, holding it up. The shells gleamed, catching light that shouldn't exist. Jake whistled. "That's no mall merch. That's old. Like, really old." Maya snaps a photo, her phone miraculously working for a moment. "I'm posting this on X," she said. "Maybe someone out there knows what it is." But as she typed, the screen flickered, showing the burning village again. She yelped, shoving the phone away. "Enough with the phone," Jake snapped, then softened. "Sorry, I'm freaking out too." Sophie clutched the necklace, her intuition screaming. "This is important," she said. "I can feel it. Like it's connected to them." She didn't know how to explain the warmth spreading through her fingers, or the faint hum she heard, like a distant song. Jake rummaged through a shelf, pulling out a dusty radio. "Maybe this works," he said, fiddling with the dials. Static crackled, then a voice, faint but clear, came through. "Hello? Is anyone there?" It was a woman, her tone urgent but calm. Sophie grabbed the radio. "Yes. We're here. We're trapped in Starlight Plaza." The woman paused, then spoke. "I'm Dr. Evelyn Harper, a historian in Irvine. I've been monitoring reports about the mall. You're not alone, others have seen things there before." Jake leaned in. "Lady, we're way past seeing things. This place is alive, and it's trying to kill us." "Not killed," Evelyn corrected. "Communicate. That land was a Chumash burial ground, desecrated in the 1990s. Before that, a ritual was interrupted in 1850, during a small massacre. The spirits are restless because their peace was stolen." Sophie's heart sank. "She's right," she whispered to herself. The images in her mind, the village, the screams, matched Evelyn's words. "How do we fix this?" Maya asked, her voice desperate. Evelyn's tone grew solemn. "You need to complete the ritual. If you have any artifacts, shells, stones, anything Chumash, use them. Place them in a sacred space, sing a prayer. I can guide you." Sophie held up the necklace. "We have something, a shell necklace. Will that work?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "That's perfect. Take it to the center of the mall, likely the food court. I'll teach you the prayer." Jake rubbed his face. "So we're doing a seance now? Great." "It's not a ceremony," Evelyn said firmly. "It's respect. You're giving them what was taken." The radio cracked, and the chanting returned, drowning out Evelyn's voice. The walls pulsed, and a gust of wind tore through the office, scattering papers. Sophie clutched the necklace, she resolved hardening. "We're doing this," she said. "For them." Getting to the food court was a nightmare. The mall fights harder, its hallways twisting like a living maze. At one point, the floor cracked open, revealing a glimpse of a starry sky, not California's sky, but one from centuries ago, vast and untouched. Sophie stared, mesmerized, until Jake pulled her back. "Keep moving," he shouted, dodging a chair that flew past, shattering against a wall. The air was thick, like swimming through syrup, and every step felt like defying gravity. Maya clutched her phone, filming despite the glitches. "If we die, this better go viral," she asserted, half serious. But her eyes were wide, catching every shadow that moved. "Too many to count now." "Not killed," Evelyn corrected. "Communicate." That land was a Chumash burial ground, desecrated in the 1990s. Before that, a ritual was interrupted in 1850, during a small massacre. The spirits are restless because their peace was stolen. Sophie's heart sank. "She's right," she whispered to herself. The images in her mind, the village, the screams, matched Evelyn's words. "How do we fix this?" Maya asked, her voice desperate. Evelyn's tone grew solemn. "You need to complete the ritual. If you have any artifacts, shells, stones, anything Chumash, use them. Place them in a sacred space, sing a prayer. I can guide you." Sophie held up the necklace. "We have something, a shell necklace. Will that work?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "That's perfect. Take it to the center of the mall, likely the food court. I'll teach you the prayer." Jake rubbed his face. "So we're doing a seance now? Great." "It's not a ceremony," Evelyn said firmly. "It's respect. You're giving them what was taken." The radio cracked, and the chanting returned, drowning out Evelyn's voice. The walls pulsed, and a gust of wind tore through the office, scattering papers. Sophie clutched the necklace, she resolved hardening. "We're doing this," she said. "For them." Getting to the food court was a nightmare. The mall fights harder, its hallways twisting like a living maze. At one point, the floor cracked open, revealing a glimpse of a starry sky, not California's sky, but one from centuries ago, vast and untouched. Sophie stared, mesmerized, until Jake pulled her back. "Keep moving," he shouted, dodging a chair that flew past, shattering against a wall. The air was thick, like swimming through syrup, and every step felt like defying gravity. Maya clutched her phone, filming despite the glitches. "If we die, this better go viral," she asserted, half serious. But her eyes were wide, catching every shadow that moved. "Too many to count now." Figures lined the hallways, not just the woman or child, but dozens, men, women, elders, their forms flickering like candle flames. They didn't attack, but their gazes burned with sorrow. Sophie led the way, the necklace warm in her hand. "I hear you," she whispered in Vietnamese, hoping the spirits understood. "We're listening." The chanting softened, as if strengthened her words, but the pressure didn't ease. They reached the food court, now a cavernous void. The tables were gone, the floor a smooth expanse of stone, like an ancient plaza. The ceiling was open, revealing that impossible starry sky. Sophie's breath caught. This is their place," she said. "The heart of it all." Jake scanned the area, his flashlight useless under the starlight. "Feels like we're not in Irvine anymore," he said, his voice tight. Maya put her phone down. The screen showed the group standing in the food court, but with dozens of figures around them, invisible to the naked eyes. "Guys, we're not alone," she whispered, pointing at the screen. Sophie nodded, stepping to the center. "We don't have to be afraid," she said, although her voice shook. "They're not here to hurt us. They just want to be heard." She placed the necklace on the stone, its shells glowing softly. The chanting stopped, replaced by a single voice, a woman's, clear and mournful. "We were taken," she said, in English now, though heavy with an ancient accent. "Our rest was broken. Our voices silenced." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "We're sorry," she said. "We're here to make it right." Jake and Maya stepped closer, their fear giving way to determination. "Tell us what to do," Jake said, his voice steady for the first time. The woman's form appears, clearer now, a tall figure in woven robes, her face etched with pain but not anger. "Sing with us," she said. "Return what was lost." Evelyn's voice crackled through the radio, faint but steady. "Repeat after me," she said, chanting a Chumash prayer. The words were unfamiliar, their syllables rolling like a river, but Sophie, Jake, and Maya echoed them, their voices trembling at first, then growing stronger. "Kotash, Suk, Amuis," Sophie sang, her eyes on the necklace. The shells pulsed, light spreading across the stone. The spirits joined in, their voices harmonizing, a chorus of grief and hope. The air lightened, the pressure eased, like a storm breaking. Images flooded Sophie's mind, not just pain now, but life, children laughing, elders weaving, families by the fire. The Chumash, before the massacre, before the theft. She cried openly, not from fear, but from the weight of their story. Jake's voice cracked as he sang, his hands clenched. Maya, tears streaming, held her phone, the screen now showing the spirits as they were, whole, alive, at peace. The food court glowed, the starry sky spinning above, a dance of light and shadow. As the prayer ended, the woman spoke again. "You have listened. You have given us voice. We can rest." The necklace flared, then crumbled to dust, its purpose fulfilled. The faded spirits, not with a flash, but a gentle dissolve, like mist in the morning sun. The food court returned, tables, chairs, ceiling, all normal, as if nothing had happened. Sophie fell to her knees, exhausted but alive. "We did it," she whispered. "We did it." Jake helped her up, his face pale but relieved. "I'm never working night shifts again," he said, managing a weak laugh. Maya checked her phone. The video is now blank. "It's gone," she said, almost disappointed. "But I think that's okay." The radio cracked one last time. "You've done something extraordinary," Evelyn said. "They are spirits at peace. Come see me when you're out, I'll tell you more." The group stumbled to the main entrance. The glass doors are now unlocked. "Repeat after me," she said, chanting a Chumash prayer. The words were unfamiliar, their syllables rolling like a river, but Sophie, Jake, and Maya echoed them, their voices trembling at first, then growing stronger. "Kotash, Suk, Amuis," Sophie sang, her eyes on the necklace. The shells pulsed, light spreading across the stone. The spirits joined in, their voices harmonizing, a chorus of grief and hope. The air lightened, the pressure eased, like a storm breaking. Images flooded Sophie's mind, not just pain now, but life, children laughing, elders weaving, families by the fire. The Chumash, before the massacre, before the theft. She cried openly, not from fear, but from the weight of their story. Jake's voice cracked as he sang, his hands clenched. Maya, tears streaming, held her phone, the screen now showing the spirits as they were, whole, alive, at peace. The food court glowed, the starry sky spinning above, a dance of light and shadow. As the prayer ended, the woman spoke again. "You have listened. You have given us voice. We can rest." The necklace flared, then crumbled to dust, its purpose fulfilled. The faded spirits, not with a flash, but a gentle dissolve, like mist in the morning sun. The food court returned, tables, chairs, ceiling, all normal, as if nothing had happened. Sophie fell to her knees, exhausted but alive. "We did it," she whispered. "We did it." Jake helped her up, his face pale but relieved. "I'm never working night shifts again," he said, managing a weak laugh. Maya checked her phone. The video is now blank. "It's gone," she said, almost disappointed. "But I think that's okay." The radio cracked one last time. "You've done something extraordinary," Evelyn said. "Your spirit's at peace. Come see me when you're out, I'll tell you more." The group stumbled to the main entrance. The glass doors are now unlocked. Outside, the parking lot was normal: cars, streetlights, the faint hum of Irvine at dawn. The air was warm, the stars faded as the sky lightened. Sophie breathed deeply, the weight went away. "I'm not the same," she said, her voice soft. "I can't go back to just selling clothes." Jake nodded, his eyes distant. "Yeah. I'm done laughing at ghost stories. There's more out there." Maya opened X, typing furiously. "I'm telling the world," she said. "Not for clout, for them. People need to know about the Chumash, about what happened here." They walked away from Starlight Plaza. Its glass walls caught the first rays of sun. The mall stood silent, no longer a threat, but no longer ordinary. Rumors would spread, investigations might follow, and maybe, just maybe, the land would be honorable at last. Sophie looked back, whispering, "Thank you. Thank you. For teaching her to listen."